Welcome everybody to this latest edition of the Neighbourhood Scope. Today we are going to be focusing on Bangladesh, one of our closest neighbors. Now, this is not a book discussion, but this discussion is against the backdrop of a fabulous book on Bangladesh written by Deep Halder and his colleagues. One of them is sitting out here, Shahidul Khokon. Um, so, welcome to both of you. But let me reiterate, this is not a book discussion. Uh, but I think this book forms the book's titled Inshallah Bangladesh. It forms a very good backdrop to what we will be discussing today, because it lays out the lay of the land as far as Bangladesh is concerned, uh, and describes it with a lot of empathy, I must say. Uh, a lot of people will accuse Deep and his colleagues of writing a book from a pro Awami League perspective, but I think he's been pretty scathing on the Awami League as well, and the kind of administration and governance record they have. But that is all. Water of a duck's back as far as Bangladesh is concerned now. The times have passed it by. Um, but let me start the ball rolling with Deep. I think the title of your book mentions revolution. Revolutions come with a lot of destruction, although I think the destruction part is true with the regime change as well. But doesn't quite seem to have been a revolution that took place last year. Uh, but more than that, what we have seen happen since then is a kind of unraveling. Bangladesh was seen as a success story. Of course, there will always be problems. We are all third world countries, so there will always be problems in developing economies. But the trajectory was on the upswing. Industry was doing well. Bangladesh was being held up as a kind of an example by many countries on how things need to be done right. And of course, I'm not hiding the fact that there was corruption. It was not a government which was very responsive to the people in the sense of a very democratic kind of a governance. There was a lot of arrogance which was on display. All of that thing given, despite all of that, Bangladesh was held up as an example. What we are seeing today, under the leadership of the kind of people who get Nobel Prizes, who knows? But what we are seeing today is the unraveling of all the accomplishments which have been done. Um how are you looking at the situation as it exists today, and how do you think, where do you think we are likely to go from where we are now to maybe in the medium term? Pointless to talk about the long term, but since we are all dead in the long term, but at least in the medium term, how do you see things play out, Deep?
Thank you, Sushant, and thank you, ORF, for having me here. First off, was it a revolution? So, in the book and generally in my opinion pieces, I call it an uprising because there was popular discontent against Sheikh Hasina. I was there to cover the January 7, 2024 election, which brought Sheikh Hasina back to power. And I remember it was a one-day election. The results came out the same day. In fact, I was in my co-author Shahidul Hasan Khokon's office, and much to his annoyance, I gave a headline that Army League fights Army League and Sheikh Hasina wins. So it was a sham of an election. There was a sense that she's going to come back to power. The Bangladesh Nationalist Party chose not to participate in the elections, calling it a sham election. The Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh, the largest Islamist party in Bangladesh, was barred by the Supreme Court, Bangladesh Supreme Court, from participating in the elections. So, and it was pretty much fixed. So, was there discontent against Hasina? Yes, there was. Students came out in large numbers on the streets. There was an uprising. It was a violent uprising. But was it a revolution? I'm not very sure. Coming here, I was looking at the phone and checking the headlines from Bangladesh today. In fact, an hour or so ago, one of the student leaders, who is now a National Citizen Party candidate from Dhaka 7 constituency, Osman Hadi, he has just been shot in the face. Okay, The student leaders who now, some of whom now are part of the National Citizen Party, they are extremely, extremely unpopular. There are huge corruption cases against them. There are charges of extortion against them. They're so unpopular that in the election that has been announced on February 12th, nobody is even talking about the NCP. People are saying whether it's a toss-up between the Bangladesh Nationalist Party and Jamaat. I mean, it's become so unpopular so soon. I think that in terms of revolutions, violent or non-violent, I think the Delhi electorate gave the Aam Aadmi Party far more time. Bangladesh is already so disheartened with the student leaders. There were also, during researching the book, there were also several pointers to why it was not a revolution, but something that was planned for very long. We forget that soon after Hasina came back to power, there was another very popular movement against her, the India Out campaign, which was carried out online, but also on the streets. There were people out, raiding shops, checking whether they're keeping Indian products, and it just did not stop at FMCG. Even Bangladeshi actors and actresses who come to India to be part of Bengali cinema from West Bengal, and sometimes Hindi cinema in Bombay, even there were boycott calls for them. So, and when you look back at the kind of violence that went through the revolution. Now, revolutions can become violent, very gaudy. You saw the Nepal movement where the former prime minister's wife was burnt alive. But I have not seen any revolution where policemen are targeted and then killed, hacked to death, then they're stripped and hung from bridges. That's a very specific kind of messaging, which I don't think very emotionally violent outbursts by students do. Then there were sniper calls that were later found out. In fact, a very senior retired officer in the Bangladesh army, he was taking a procession, towards Ganobhavan, and he got a call on his mobile phone saying that don't progress any further. There's a sniper looking at you, you'll be shot. Now, who made that call? That was not from anybody in the administration or from the Bangladesh military or even from the Bangladesh police. Who made that call? Who were those snipers who specifically targeted civilians and children who were not ordered to do so by Sheikh Hasina's administration, but which made the people of Bangladesh extremely angry because children were killed. So to call it just a students' movement or students' revolution, I think would be faulty. I don't want to say things like, there's a foreign hand, this and that. I mean, those things are very easily bandied about on X and other places. But was it just students who came out in large numbers across Bangladesh to bring down a government? The answer is no. We have enough and more questions raised already about how it was very well orchestrated, how there were various layers. Of course, in the first rung, there were the students, but there were various layers. In fact, the infiltration into even the Army League. One of the things that was very startling, which I mentioned in the book, is a very prominent Chhatro League, which is the Army League student wing. Chhatro League leader in Dhaka University came out and said he basically is a Jamaati, belongs to Jamaat student wing. He has been posing all these years as a Army League student. And now that the job is done and Army League is out of the political fray, he can come out and say that, he belongs to the Jamaat. So yeah, the first part of what you asked me, sir, is was it a spontaneous students' revolution? No, it wasn't. And what happened after? I mentioned, the disenchantment with the students and the students' party that came out of the uprising. But I think there's been total chaos. And I think if I have to sum it up, I think if one thing is not chaotic and one thing is moving with some amount of certainty, it's the way Jamaat is spreading its wings across Bangladeshi society and politics. It is not just what they're doing electorally, how powerful they are becoming as a political outfit. It's also how they are now the de facto system in Bangladesh, from the judiciary to academia to to the media. You have people from the Jamaat replacing any other person with a different ideological bent In fact, now that the Army League is out, I think the biggest threat to the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, who till a few months ago was widely believed to sweep the next election, is the Jamaat. You now already have poll predictions, and sometimes by former diplomats, former foreign diplomats in Bangladesh who have retired long ago, American diplomats who now say that it's a free and fair elections.
Weren't those American diplomats part of the regime change operations also?
I won't.
So I'm not surprised. So I think we should take them seriously when they are saying who is going to win these. They've already decided who's going to win the free and fair election. So I guess it's going to be rather. I think it's going to be more free than fair.
It's going to be more free than fair, and I think it's surprising how if elections do take place on February 12th, which is a scheduled date, how can you already call it a free and fair election? And it is yet to happen. 2 months, Army League is out. Gentleman argues, and not just him. There are many others who argue that the Army League should win back the trust of people before it can enter the political fray. But I think, like I said, one thing that has been consistent.
Since Bangladesh is East Pakistan, in the West Pakistan, it is said that when the elections happened after Ziaul Haq's death, it was said that these elections were perfectly free and fair.
Yeah.
They were fair till 9 o'clock in the morning. After that, they became free.
Yeah.
So I suppose the Bangladesh elections are likely to go in the same way.
Yeah, and the scary bit is the acting chairperson of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, the son of General Ziaur Rahman and Khaleda Zia, the first female Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Tariq Rahman, is just not coming back to Dhaka. I mean, every month I hear, and I don't hear. I mean, he writes on Facebook that he's going to come back. Last I saw that he's going to come back in the next 15 days. He said he'd most definitely come back in November. We are now in December. I mean, he is too scared to come back. So imagine.
But is that apprehension of his security genuine, or is it paranoia?
The Home Advisor in the interim regime has given an assurance that there will be security provided to anybody who wants to come back.
Yeah, so at Benazir Bhutto had also been given those assurances. It's fine.
Yeah, so you can understand how chaotic it is if the chairman of the biggest political party right now, with Army League out, is scared to come back home. It says something about the state of chaos in Bangladesh that the acting chairperson doesn't feel secure enough to come back.
Okay, very quickly, Deep, before I go to Ambassador Sikri. Now, given the kind of scene which you've portrayed, do you think if at all elections are held, assuming they are either free or fair or free and fair, whatever might the case be, it will bring about any degree of stability, or do you think we are going to see prolonged upheaval in Bangladesh for the foreseeable future? Very quickly.
I think we are entering a reign of terror and chaos in Bangladesh, because there is we can debate the extent of the electorate, but there is an electorate the Army League still holds, and I think it's not going to be easy between the Bangladesh Nationalist Party and the Jamaat and other political players. So I think extortion is already there. Economy is falling. Rape stats are horrific. Last 1 year, the kind of videos I've woken up to from my sources on the ground, I now have to mute them. Every morning, hacking, rapes, and now rape videos are very rampant in Bangladesh. They are not just being raped. The question of minorities is a whole different matter altogether. I mean, it's almost no point talking about it anymore. I think we are entering a very dangerous phase.
Ambassador Sikri, can I ask you uncomfortable questions? Not that you represent the government anymore, but I think a lot of independent analysts, even before the elections happened in 2024 in Bangladesh, were sensing or were talking about a certain groundswell against Sheikh Hasina. It seemed, at least publicly, we were in denial. Do you think government of India was blindsided by what was happening in Bangladesh because we felt that Sheikh Hasina was an ally of India, was somebody we could trust, So we kind of ignored everything else that was happening. Do you think we were blindsided? And I ask you this because, you are quoted in Deep's book as being hopeful that this current phase will not last. Are you erring on the side of optimism? And I ask you this because very often our diplomats are perpetually very optimistic people. Um, Ideally, you should be very pessimistic, cynical and pessimistic, but you are very optimistic. But I ask you this because from whatever Deep has described right now and what is happening on the ground in Bangladesh, the optimism that you've expressed in the book, at least the way you are quoted, that this will come to pass, Bangladesh will recover and go back to its secular origins, on the basis of which the country came into existence. Uh, you are actually living in denial, ma'am.
Okay. So there are about three questions wrapped up in that one question. But I think first I'd like to say that the title of your event today is wrong. It's not revolution and its aftermath. It's regime change and the aftermath. So if we are talking about
That was my
change,
first question to Deep, actually.
yeah, okay, I missed that. But if we talk about regime change, we have a certain set of issues to talk about. If we're talking about revolution, it's a different set of issues. It was not a spontaneous students' uprising. It was neither spontaneous nor students. So who was responsible for it? Well, since we're not debating it today, but I want to know that I want everybody to know that it is Mohammad Yunus himself who said in New York in September last year at the Clinton Global Initiative that this was not spontaneous. It was meticulously designed. And he introduced the mastermind, his own special assistant, Mahfouz Alam. So why are we still calling it a revolution? Why? If you're telling me I'm optimistic, is this pessimism or optimism? That even when Mohammad Yunus, the interim government chief, had said it's meticulously designed, why are we still calling it a spontaneous revolution? We are living in not me. I don't call it a spontaneous revolution, but everybody else does. ORF does. Everybody does. Why? Let us first recognize what it is, then we can know what's happening and what will happen. So if we are all living in this fool's paradise that it's a revolution and was spontaneous, then how can you ask me why I'm being pessimistic or optimistic? So that's my first answer, okay? My second answer is that about Sheikh Hasina, let me take that issue head on. I think it is entirely wrong to say that this theory about all eggs in one basket, completely wrong. India will always deal with the government of the day. And even when Mohammad Yunus became the interim chief and our Prime Minister sent a message to him, it was that we are prepared to do business with you. We felicitate you. We're prepared to continue the cooperation we had built up over the last many decades with Bangladesh. But we also mentioned why are the minorities being treated so badly. The Hindus, the Christians, the Buddhists, the Sufis, the Ahmadiyyas, all minorities. I don't agree with you, Deep, when you say that that we should not talk about minorities. I mean, anywhere, even if 1% of a minority is hurt or injured in any part of India, there's a hue and cry. Hundreds and thousands are being, raped, lynched, businesses destroyed, taken over, and we're not even talking about it. Why? Who is living in the fool's paradise? Why are we quiet about all these things? Why can't we? And we are, buying in the world. Mohammad Yunus gave an interview this September again in New York, and he was asked about the minority killings. He said, oh, fake news from India. India is the home of fake news. And we keep quiet. Why are we doing all this? Why are we not recognizing that our most sensitive neighbor, with whom we had built a beautiful relationship, is now facing the nadir of their very existence? And we are just letting it happen. Sheikh Hasina, let me compare Sheikh Hasina for you with what preceded her. I was High Commissioner there when Begum Khalida Zia was the Prime Minister, the BNP government, with Jamaat as an alliance partner. I know the security issues we faced every day. It was every terrorist act in India at that time had a Bangladeshi footprint because the Pakistanis were fully in operation in Bangladesh and they were coming through Bangladesh and doing their terrorism in India. They were creating sleeper cells among the illegal immigrants in India, which they are now activating. So this security nightmare which we were facing, and when there was the Chittagong Arms Hall, enough weaponry to blow up the entire northeast and all the many other parts. There was the personal attack on Sheikh Hasina, and we were telling the BNP government every day, solve the security problems, everything will be okay. When Sheikh Hasina got elected, probably the freest and fairest and inclusive, I don't even talk about free and fair elections. Free and fair elections are not worth the name unless they are inclusive. Only then they can be credible. What is free and fair? Not inclusive means it's not credible. So when Sheikh Hasina was elected with the highest majority, 3/4, she immediately said, I recognize India's security red lines. So it's not Sheikh Hasina. We are after the principles of governance, of good neighborliness. And she said, I recognize India's security red lines. I will not support a single insurgent group from the northeast in Bangladesh. It is not beneficial to the people of Bangladesh that we should have, foreign insurgent groups here and we should support them. Paresh Barua ran away, Anup Chetia handed over to India. There was the next 15 years, there was peace and development in Northeast India, which we hadn't had for the previous 20 years. Even the people of Northeast India forgot about the existence of insurgent groups. For the last 15 years, they've had peace and development. And they have prospered and they have grown, and all the many insurgent issues have been resolved. Of course, Manipur has come up again in the last, all that is there. But this is the point. So the friendship with Sheikh Hasina is based on principles. Please don't call it, blindsided. What is all this blindsided? Blindsided by whom? We are blindsided by our own. We want to implement our own national interest. We want security. I think the relationship we built with Sheikh Hasina over the last 15 years is an excellent example of our neighborhood first foreign policy. It is a success story, one of the biggest success stories in neighborhood relationship development. I don't know why you're calling it as though she was something that we should never have been supporting.
No,
but that is the implication of what everybody says.
No, I don't care about what everybody's saying. But my point, when the question I was trying to put to you was blindsided by the fact that because we had a good thing going with Sheikh Hasina, yes, obviously the security aspect was the critical, piece of the puzzle, and she understood that, which is why the relationship went from from strength to strength. And it was, and you are very correct, that it was good for Bangladesh as well, because, the development was not just India-centric, it was Bangladesh.
Mutually beneficial.
Exactly. So that what I meant by blindsided was that, look, there was a certain upsurge building up within Bangladesh.
Okay.
Should we not have been aware of what was happening? Because frankly speaking, I can't quote anybody and I'm not going to name anybody, but it seems that the kind of feedback we were getting from our missions in Bangladesh suggested all is well. And all was not well. And we got to know this, and it came as a bit of a shock, at least in the public domain. I don't know what happened behind power corridors. But at least in the public domain, it came as a bit of a surprise, the suddenness with which everything happened in Dhaka.
Let me explain. I think definitely there was a very strong anti-incumbency feeling against Sheikh Hasina, no doubt about it. And she was criticized on things like Digital Security Act, that were reducing the freedom of the media, that your elections, why is it? Now, elections, I must come to the elections straight away. The BNP should have taken part in the elections. And I can tell you that there was such a strong anti-incumbency against Sheikh Hasina that had the BNP taken part, willy-nilly they would have won. They would have won because, I think it's a very Bengali trait that you want to change. You want to change. You say, okay, fine, we've had Sheikh Hasina, okay, she's good, but we want somebody else. So the strong anti-incumbency was there, and if the BNP had taken part, they would certainly have won, but they did not, and so Sheikh Hasina's party was returned to power. Now, I think that the anti-incumbency feeling definitely would have been there. But if you think that it is because of this student reform incident that the government fell apart, it did not. The government fell apart because of the way the regime change operation was planned. So unless you recognize that fact, there's no point talking about reasons which are not there. We're just, beating about the bush.
Can I ask you a provocative thing?
Yes.
Should we have not been aware? Okay, maybe this sounds very naive, But should we not have been aware of what was underfoot?
Well, I think as far as intelligence gathering is concerned, I cannot comment on that because I'm not been in that line at all at any
My
time.
job is trying to put you.
But let me say that I do think that till the very end, till the killing started, let us be very clear. Even if you take the regime change operation had been put in motion, why put in motion? Because actually there was no quota reform issue. Sheikh Hasina had herself abolished the quotas. So actually, even in the 2024 election, there was no quota. The Jamaat-e-Islami had chosen this quota reform abolition as an issue right from 2013. So she was elected in 2009 for the first time. Next election was 2014. So from 2013 onward, the Jamaat-e-Islami had started drumming up the quota reform issue and telling all the students, and there was a lot of indoctrination training, paid trainings actually. Even President Trump has tweeted about that. Getting people to be against Sheikh Hasina, but quota reform was on the. She did not change in 2013. 2014 elections were held. She was re-elected. 2018, again, before the 2019 elections, Jamaat-e-Islami again raised the quota issue. This time, Sheikh Hasina said, okay, I'm abolishing quotas. From 2018 onward, there have been no quotas. 2024 elections came. Somebody went to court after that. And some High Court judge, it's very interesting to look into the antecedents of how it happened. But anyway, some High Court judge restored the quota. And so the students came on the street, but very peaceful, very quiet. In fact, during those quota peaceful movements, there were visuals of, students standing peacefully, the police standing there. Sheikh Hasina came to India at the end of June. She went to China in the early of July. This is not the visit of a person who's seeing a threat to her government. So it was perfectly normal. When she came back from China, there was that press conference, and in response to quota, she said, yes, my government has been restored by the High Court judge, but we have gone in appeal to Supreme Court, and we have again asked for abolition of quota, and I can assure you, etc., we're doing all that. And somebody asked, why did you give the quota? She said, of course, we have given it to children and grandchildren of freedom fighters. We're not going to give it to Razakars. Using that word Razakar, from that night, the violence started. And from Dhaka University, you saw the weapons coming out. Exactly what Deep was talking about. That the violence started. Where did those weapons come from? How did they reach Dhaka University? And then from then on, the violence only escalated. And certainly, Sheikh Hasina used the police and later on even asked the army, to make sure that the law and order situation was maintained. But that is when all these killings and counter-killings happened. And the NCP leaders, the students' movement leaders and others have had no qualms about saying that we killed the policemen. They've said so. They've said in a videotape that if we hadn't killed the policemen, we would not have success in our uprisings. Because they ransacked 2/3 of the police stations across Bangladesh. 400 out of some 600 odd police thanas. They stole the weapons. And with those weapons, they killed. And then, even till today, the police is not back in full force because it's very unfortunate that those police killings are not even being talked about or recognized. And I want to know why all the world and USA, UK, EU, who love democracy, who've backed for human rights, have not spoken once about the killing of the policemen.
Ma'am,
I
think that's a no-brainer.
It's a very relevant question because...
Ma'am, when have they ever bothered about human rights? It's a political tool, and right now politics was regime change, so they got it, and that's the end of the matter.
All right.
I don't know why we take their claims of human rights so seriously.
I am giving it as an example because they are supporting the elections in Bangladesh. And in neighboring Myanmar, those very same elections are being condemned. A very parallel situation.
They haven't opened their mouth on the elections in Pakistan, which are not even an election.
Exactly, or on the 27th Amendment, despite telling the Bangladesh Army Chief all the time that if you do this, your peacekeeping operations are going to be...
No, but I personally, ma'am, I personally think it's a trap.
I am saying this because that is why these elections are taking place like this. Otherwise, where would you have a situation where you have a mobocracy changing election commissioners, a mobocracy changing Supreme Court judges, a mobocracy changing ICT judges? Where would you have it? And you just say, okay, this is normal. This is normal. And now we are talking about democratic elections. When all this has been normalized, how can you call it a democratic election? And the people of Bangladesh are saying, aage bhalo chilo. That was much better before. And if indeed you're talking about a constitutional position that, when Mohammad Yunus was sworn in on a constitution of Bangladesh, which did not even have a provision for an interim government, but he was sworn in. So how can you call it a constitutional legitimate government? Nobody does. You've actually taken an oath on a constitution which doesn't have a provision for your existence. How do you call it a valid constitutional government or a legitimate government? All right, number one question. Not constitutional, not legitimate. All right, you still say, no, but we have changed the Supreme Court judges, we've got our Jamaati people there, and they are going to change the constitution and declare it to be an interim government. Even then, even the change which the government of the newly created Supreme Court judges of Bangladesh have done, they have said this has to be a non-party government. And here you have an interim government where the Islami Andolan Bangladesh, Hizb ut-Tahrir, all the Islamic parties are there. And how do you call it a valid government? So I think we have to go back to first principle and we have to see why these elections are at all being allowed to held. How can it be an election unless full participation is ensured? There have been 3 color change revolutions in South Asia in the last 3 years. 22 in Sri Lanka, 24 in Bangladesh, 25 in Nepal. In both Sri Lanka and Nepal, regime change happened. Rajapaksa, very unpopular, nepotistic, brought down. But the people went back to parliament, went back to democracy. When the elections were held, nobody was banned. Rajapaksa's party took a prime position with everybody else. They didn't get votes, that's fine. But they were there. In Nepal, Oli government comes down, they're going to participate in the March elections. No banning of the Oli party, despite so much unhappiness, whatever it may be with them. Why in Bangladesh is the Awami League being banned? And also, let me tell you that talking about violence happening in Bangladesh is inevitable. Yes, 2 days ago, Pratham Alo, the leading Bengali language newspaper of Dhaka, of Bangladesh, published the results of a survey, an opinion survey. That survey took place on October 27, 28. And he said, in that survey, the survey asked about the banning of the Awami League, about the lack of participation of Awami League in the elections. And the answer was that 70% said, we want Awami League to participate. 70% we want even unconditional, without any. Some people said, okay, another said, okay, maybe some conditions. 70%. Is anybody giving credit to that? But the most interesting part about that survey is that at the end of October, then they were asked, okay, who will you vote for? And in that time, they had come out with an answer that they may not vote for Awami League. They may vote for BNP. BNP got a lot of votes. And then Jamaat-e-Islami, and then Awami League. So the people of Bangladesh want a participatory democratic election. They may not vote for Awami League. I'm not saying to vote for Awami League. I'm saying you cannot call yourself a democracy until you have participatory elections. And I know the people of Bangladesh are very interested in democracy. I'm batting for value system. Another survey, international...
Ma'am, I'll come to that. Let me just go to
last 1 minute. So that last survey shows a very interesting change in the mood in the last 6 weeks. Just 2 minutes. In the last 6 weeks. I think it's important to know that. And now the difference between the BNP and Jamaat has come down to something like 4 percentage points, with about 17% still undecided or unsure about what they're going to do. So I think this idea that is coming out of, the BNP is going to win, is by no means the Jamaat is going to come to power. The Jamaat is the B team of Pakistan. I rest my case, please.
So, Kanjanda, we've seen the violence in Bangladesh against the majority community, of course, but a lot of violence against the minority community. This is despite denials, as Ambassador Sikri has spoken about, blatant denials by Mohammad Yunus that nothing of the sort is happening. It reminds me of old Soviet times when, they would deny everything. The presence of Gulag, they would deny virtually everything. But we know what has happened. I think it's quite well documented as well. What does India do in a situation like this? Can we do anything more than what we've already done? We've passed some statements. Is there anything more that we can do? Is there some kind of a campaign that India should have carried out, highlighting this issue, making a big thing of this issue, of the kind of persecution of minorities that is taking place in Bangladesh? Or do we adopt a hands-off approach that minorities in Bangladesh is not an Indian problem? But which it is, come to think of it. It's always been.
To understand what's happening in Bangladesh vis-a-vis the Hindus, the Christians, the Buddhists, some animists, and other quote-unquote non-Islamic communities, we need to get some facts clear. Those of you who are reading this book or those who are interested in understanding the backdrop to Inshallah Bangladesh, you should also read Deep's previous book, which is about being Hindu in Bangladesh. So what does it mean to be a religious minority and a sizable, 10% of the population is not a very small amount. The violence against Hindus has been a continuing thing in Bangladesh. It peaked during 1971 and then settled down during the early years of post-liberation, largely because of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's starring figure and his personality. The violent regime change, and I know you won't like restate it, but it was entirely done by the American establishment. Let there be no doubt. You have American diplomats who were posted in the American embassy in Dhaka during those days. They are all over social media now, and they are abusing. If any Indian even remotely suggests things were better when Sheikh Hasina was there, they jump down this or her throat. That is the kind of extensive involvement they had. And the violence against minorities was co-terminus with the organized uprising against Sheikh Hasina. And if those, we all know that they were organized, they were pre-planned, and Yunus himself, when he went to America last year, he kept on telling him that we were up to it. You don't realize it was meticulously planned. To the last dot, it had been worked out. We had gamed it, and he says we, that means he was very much a part of it. And part of that meticulous planning was to come down on the minorities, because otherwise it would not have been co-terminus. Funnily enough, some bleeding heart liberals over there, who are by no means either Islamists or jihadists, or nor do they subscribe to the Jamaati worldview, they had also jumped in to join the quote-unquote revolution. Things like musicians, artists, painters. And none of them is around in Bangladesh today. They have all fled. They are hiding in Calcutta. Some of them are in Sierra Park. If you go to plantation Sierra Park, you will run into that. And the most prominent of them, Anando, Rahul Anand, who called himself Rahul Anand, and the French president visited him when he visited Bangladesh. He went to his house. He was a folk musician, and he was a collector of musical instruments. He had a museum work which nobody else in the world had. His house was burned. And they claimed that we burned it down because it was next to the Awami League office. It was accidental. There was nothing accidental about it. The Indian Cultural Center was burned. So Rahul and his family, they fled overnight. They fled overnight they fled overnight and they came to India. And I'm told from Calcutta they took a flight to Paris. They wanted to go to they asked the Americans for help. The Americans very blandly stated, and they continue to take this position, they are facing targeted attacks. And one of those three countries, two were African countries, and one of them, the third country, was Bangladesh. And his complaint, or his the point which he was making was, he did say targeted against minority communities. He used the word minorities, but obviously we know he was referring to Christians over there. And despite that, you have the EU engaging with Yunus at the highest possible level. You have America engaging, and the State Department, which runs that racket called religious freedom, they are engaging with him. Why? Lastly, the question which you asked, what can India do? India on its own has done whatever India could do. India has raised this issue on multilateral forums. India has taken it up bilaterally. And what Yunus has now done is that he has decided to cut off India. They have virtually stopped all imports from us, including rice, without which they would starve to death. What they are doing is they are buying Indian rice via Dubai and paying twice over for it. They're happy with that, but to his people, he can say, I have kicked out Indian rice. It's a very sad situation where what you have is a return. It's really a return to the pre-1971 situation. The Pakistani generals who are visiting Bangladesh, they are not calling on Bangladeshis. The Bangladeshis are calling on them. You have senior generals of the Bangladeshi army, because I'm going by the reports and the photos and the captions which appear in Bangladeshi media. They say General so-and-so calling on visiting Pakistani Major General so-and-so. This is a situation which you have. The Pakistanis have set up a training camp right next to India's chicken neck. And he is playing ball with it. I mean, he is giving anything that the Pakistanis want. So it's a terrible situation over there. India has, fortunately, without making a theater out of it, has made it very clear our borders are open for those Hindus and Christians and Buddhists who might feel compelled to leave Bangladesh. But a good thing which is happening this time is that the majority, and this is what I understand, but Shahidul and you can probably correct me, this time the majority Hindus are saying that we are not going anywhere. This is my country too. I am staying here and I am going to fight back. And similarly, the Christians and the Buddhists have taken a similar position, that we are not going to leave just because you want us to leave. Now, how long can they hold on? What happens after the election? And this is no election. Everybody has made this point, and let me also make this point. An election in which you cut out the dominant pole of Bangladeshi politics is not an election, it's a joke. And the very fact that EU and Europe and America and the UN and the UN human rights jholas, they are backing this election, shows how corrupted the world system is when it comes to elections in non-white countries, when it comes to human rights in non-white countries, and how they conveniently tailor it all to fit into their worldview. So I will rest over here.
Elections in some of the white countries are also not exactly above board. We've seen that in some of the European countries, how some parties have been thrown out of the election
Germany.
sphere. But not Germany alone, there were others as well. But Deep, let me come to you. And these are two elements in the Bangladesh polity, both critical. One which has newly emerged, one which has been of long standing. So the newly emerged one, which is also not new actually, is the student movement. So you've spoken about it earlier, but the question which has been troubling me is that a lot of people have, including Ambassador Sikri to some extent, have been saying that, look, the student movement was all orchestrated. It was not, it did not evolve spontaneously. But we have seen that in the past, tectonic changes have come about, including the birth of Bangladesh itself, as a result of student uprisings. Those changes have been long lasting. With this latest student uprising, because whether we like it or not, whether they were the Jamatiyas who got involved in it, whether the Americans were orchestrating it from behind the scenes or somebody else was doing whatever they were doing, the fact of the matter remains that on the face of it, it was the students who were agitating on the streets. So to that extent, we can call it a student-led movement. When these movements lead to regime changes, not revolutions, of course, but the changes are permanent in some ways. Do you think in this time also something similar will happen, or it's going to be different? Second, and related, the army has always played a role in Bangladesh. In your book, for example, you seem to insinuate, actually quite clearly, that the current army chief betrayed Sheikh Hasina. I might have some disagreement with you on that, but let me go by what you have written and what is the general perception that the army wanted to get rid of Sheikh Hasina. But is the army a united entity? Can the army actually call the shots in Bangladesh the way the army in the home country calls the shots, or the mother country, Pakistan, calls the shots? Can they do it in Bangladesh? Because the army's record has been pretty patchy in the past. They haven't really dominated. They've played an influential role, but they haven't dominated. How do these two factors play out in what is going to happen in the future? Obviously, I'm asking you to put on, this thing, crystal ball, do some crystal ball gazing. But
in 75, you remember, it was a section of the army that killed Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. In 1981, again, it was a section of the army that killed General Ziaur Rahman, Tariq Rahman's father. Interestingly, a colleague, very senior colleague of mine, calls the current army chief, General Walker, General Manager Walker. The reason being, he knows how to manage things. He's sometimes he's pro-India, sometimes he's against, sometimes he's angry with Yunus, sometimes he's friends with Yunus, sometimes he's going and meeting Yunus publicly. So the sense is that he knows how to play ball, he knows how to keep everybody happy. I think things are now moving towards, some sort of collaboration between the existing power structures, keeping the Army League aside, which is the army, the BNP, and the Jamaat. I think with the army, it's pretty much fixed. That's my sense. That army, I think the Jamaat and the army have been talking, and I think they know what they want from each other. With the BNP, because BNP did hope, and I think parts of the BNP still hopes to form the next government, I think it will be a little more complex. Any arrangement, February 12 elections do happen. February 12 onwards, in the next power structure, I think that's still not been fully fixed. So if they can fix that, I don't see there's an immediate threat from the army to a civilian administration, or there's going to be an army takeover. I don't see that happening. But I think the BNP factor, Tariq returns, not returns. I mean, there are two views. Most people I speak to say he will never come back, at least not in the short term. Then I think the BNP has come out and said yesterday that in the next 15 days he's going to come back. I think the BNP and the Jamaat, that fixing needs to be done. Once that happens, I don't really see the army being major deterrent to any government that comes in place.
You don't see the Bangladesh army follow in the footsteps of its parent body, the Pakistan army, which is that you have a de facto dictator, but a de jure, some kind of an election, whatever.
I don't think Walker is that guy. I think if there's somebody else in his place, maybe we can talk about that. The current army chief is not that guy. I mean, that's what Shahidul, all my other contacts on the ground in Bangladesh tell me, that Walker is not that guy who's going to... He will get what he wants, but he's not somebody who'd really come out and, have a military takeover.
So it's not going to be a hybrid model?
No, it's not going to be a hybrid model. I think it's a Jamaat model. Okay. Even if they form the government, even if they do not, I think it's going to be a fully Jamaat model. It's the degree of fixing that we are debating here. The Jamaat is going to be the system. Like I said, the judiciary is theirs, the academia, media, all of it is filled with Jamaat men now. It will continue to be so. Whether there'll be a prime minister from Jamaat or whether there'll be a prime minister from the BNP who will be a Jamaat person is what we are debating really here if February 12 elections happen without the Army League. But I think that's the only fixing left that, even now, all the opinion polls, they can't come out and say it's going to be the Jamaat. Because, Jamaat didn't have a vote till 2 to 5%, I think, at max was the Jamaat vote. Less, maybe. And suddenly, you don't go from 2% to, 40%, 37%, just like that. So I think a little bit of fixing needs to be done there. Once that's done, I don't see the army particularly as a problem, in the short term at least.
Okay, we have about 10 minutes, so I'll request both Ambassador Sikri and Kanchandar to short questions. Ambassador Sikri, on the foreign policy. We know relations with India are terrible. Their relations with Pakistan are basically East Pakistan now. But there is the big elephant or the dragon in the room, which is China. There is talk of a China-Pakistan-Bangladesh axis. I think it's the foreign minister who has recently said that, we can think of a South Asian, a community without India. I don't know how they can think of it, but maybe they can. Actually, people who talk about these kind of communities never look at a map, so that's quite understandable. But, we are seeing a level of hostility come from Bangladesh, which we are not used to, not at least in the last 15 years. How do you see the Bangladesh foreign policy play out and its impact on India? And add Myanmar to that entire equation, because there is a lot of talk. In fact, I think Deep mentions in the book also about this Arakan army, the Myanmar corridor, the Americans getting involved, all of that. It's a witch's brew.
I think long before we come to discuss the foreign policy of the Yunus regime and the others, we have to first insist that there are participatory elections. Don't take this election process as a given. It cannot be. That has to be our first effort. You cannot have this fake election ratified or accepted. I mean, how can you live in a make-believe world? Who is being blind? They are being blindsided. We are being blindsided. What's happening? How can we accept an election where a party, maybe at that time its popularity went down immediately after the regime change in July, August. But since then, it's back to it's the single largest party with the BNP. So how can you accept a situation where an election can take place without the Awami League? And I will also say that there are many more people, even beyond the Awami League, who believe in the liberation war values. So that is what we have to look at. India's constituency in Bangladesh are the people who believe in the liberation war values. And these are much more than just the Awami Leaguers. There are much more. There are many people who may not like Sheikh Hasina at all, but they still believe in liberty. There are many groups, there are many individuals, there are many organizations who don't. So I think this is what we have to first. If we are true friends of Bangladesh, this is what we have to tackle first. Because if this election is allowed to be held without being participatory, then democracy has gone in Bangladesh. Democracy has lost in Bangladesh. And this is what Pakistan is trying. And Mohammad Yunus and his regime are being willing partners.
Ma'am, but people will push back and say that, democracy was gone even in 2024 when Sheikh Hasina held the elections. whether we like it or not, Deep himself says those were sham elections. Those elections should not have been held. It's very easy to say BNP should have participated in those elections. But the fact of the matter is that, if I know an election is going to be completely stolen, or at least that's the perception, I'd rather not participate. So I'm not getting into that, right? I can't change the situation.
Look, I think
I would love for Bangladesh to emerge as a Western-style democracy and all of that. It's not going to happen.
I'm talking about a democracy which the people of Bangladesh want. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not imposing any external values on Bangladesh. I'm not imposing Indian values on Bangladesh. I'm not imposing Western, EU, USA. I'm not imposing those values on Bangladesh at all. Never. If it was clear that the people of Bangladesh want this kind of regime, I would say by all means, but it's clear it's not. And the reason I'm saying that we should insist, because if you don't have participatory elections, it's going to be continuing instability, continuing chaos, continuing exodus. The exodus we saw in 1971. It could happen again. So I'm saying, I'm not talking about a theoretical situation. I'm not talking about imposing external values. I'm talking about giving the people of Bangladesh the value they are shown to have. Why did 70% in that opinion survey that Pratham Alo published? And Pratham Alo will never publish a survey which they don't believe in. And Pratham Alo is by no means any friend of any country, including India. So why did they say that 70% want Awami League to participate? Not that they want Awami League to win. No. It's not a question of them winning or not winning. It's a question of their participation. That is what we have to look at, and then you can talk foreign policy. So that is the first. Sorry.
Okay,
yeah. Go ahead.
I'm running out of time, and I want to have at least 15 minutes for Q&A. But please go ahead.
Yeah. So I think this is the most important point. Secondly, if you're talking about what is happening, the so-called deals that have been done, that Mohammad Yunus will become president. We've already seen that. This President Shahabuddin. I have not seen a country that can humiliate its own president like this. And that the interim government chief, Mohammad
Pakistan
Yunus,
is a good example.
Sorry?
Pakistan is a very good example.
Yeah, well, but they're following Pakistan. Yes, I can agree. They're being a clone of Pakistan. There's no doubt about that.
There was this clown called Mohammad Tarar or something. You know how Musharraf got rid of him. So this is par for the course.
No, it's par for the course in Pakistan, but to see it happening in Bangladesh is not normal for us, right? So we have seen that the kind of regime or relation with India that the Yunus government wants, we've seen it already. As we've already seen about the purchase of rice from double the price. They don't want. I remember maybe a month after the regime change happened, the Turkish delegation came to Bangladesh and the Commerce Minister called on Yunus and said, "Oh, don't worry, we will replace everything India is giving you." So the signs were there already. They don't want a good relationship with India. All the agreements that were there have been, suspended. They will not say they've been cancelled, but they have been suspended. And so you know that what kind of foreign relationship that this regime wants. So you can imagine that with a non-participatory election, where the will of the people has not been expressed, I don't think you can call any election which is barring certain political parties saying it's an expression of the will of the people. In fact, Mohammad Yunus himself and so many others, even the people who are in the embassy said, the biggest problem for the regime change was that free elections were not being held. So now why are free elections not being held? Shouldn't we ask those questions? The same thing for the regime change operation was media was not free. Is the media free now? All the senior journalists are in jail. 1 year, murder charges, no framing of charges, no bail, nothing. Even the
murder charges on
exactly.
Journalists.
But that's still there. But nobody talks about it. But that is the point. That is what our media should be talking about.
Yeah, I don't see CPJ, RSF, all your other friends, Kanchanda, getting agitated about, the condition of journalists in Bangladesh.
And what about reporters on Frontier?
Yeah, I said RSF.
Oh, yeah, the RSF, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, Kanchanda, let me come to you.
May I just make one last word only about Myanmar? I just want to say, sorry. So, because you asked me about Myanmar, I want to say that. I think that is a very interesting aspect. I think one of the main reasons for the interest in the regime change operation was the victory of the Arakan army in the Rakhine state and taking control of the Rakhine state. And it's the one issue, this so-called humanitarian corridor, that at one time was being talked about, where even the army chief put his foot down. And he said he had a darbar and there were 5 points. And of course, he asked for elections in December also. And he said that we're not going to allow this. This is against the sovereignty of Bangladesh. So that is a big issue. The Myanmar situation and the Arakan army's control of Rakhine State is a big issue. And the Rohingyas are now going to be used. They are being used. The Rohingyas have taken shelter in Bangladesh. Their collaboration with certain parts of the Bangladesh army is to send the Rohingyas to fight with the Myanmar army against the Arakan army. So that situation is a totally different ball game within a ball game that's going on, which has a great danger of destabilizing this region and causing complete instability. So India wants stability, peace, prosperity and democracy in Bangladesh. We're not prescribing democracy for Bangladesh. We're telling them the people have shown their interest. And this is the important point that we have to look at always. Have the people of Bangladesh shown any satisfaction with the present regime? None at all. In fact, the law and order is terrible. The economy is going down. Unemployment, 300 factories have closed. Inflation is super high. The financial system is breaking down. But there's no interest in any of that. So I think that if we look at what we as a neighboring country have to understand, we have to look at all these issues before we talk about foreign policy.
Kanchanda, and that was actually the point I wanted to question you on the economy. Because one of the, like I said at the outset, one of the great accomplishments of the Sheikh Hasina government was stabilizing the economy, and actually Bangladesh was prospering. But now with the political unraveling and the instability, the law and order situation, we see the economy in a tailspin. A lot of export orders have been cancelled. It's basically a one-product economy in that sense. And if export orders start getting cancelled, then you have huge problems on your hand. The Bangladesh economy was already in an IMF program. How do you see, because if the economy tanks, then no matter who you get in, how does that regime survive? You have to survive on a thriving economy. I don't see a lot of aid coming from anywhere. So how do you see the economic side of things play out?
No, I mean, I think you are not entirely correct when you say you don't see much aid coming in. Let me make this very clear. If push comes to shove, both America and Europe will rush to Yunus with bags and bags of money. Already IMF has extended one tranche of aid to them. The EU has given them money, and they have set up a system of continuous flow of money. So that isn't a problem. What is happening is, like you pointed out, the single product which sort of brought about this huge boom in Bangladesh's economy, their textile industry, that's in the doldrums now. That is gone. I mean, ever since the so-called revolution happened. Because people who owned the textile industry, people who were running those factories where clothes were stitched on mass scale and exported, they are all now sitting in Newtown in Calcutta, twiddling their thumbs, and they are trying to figure out, because they are not short of money. They have brought their money with them, and they are now trying to figure out where to put in their money.
They can go to Sri Lanka. Apparently, Sri Lanka is looking for such
Probably
investors.
they will. I mean, I don't know. Now, what has also happened is Bangladesh doesn't have access to cotton. So we were giving them a lot of cotton. Without cotton, you can't spin your yarn, and without the yarn, you cannot have textile. And without that fabric, you cannot run textile manufacturing or clothes manufacturing factories. So that entire supply chain has been disrupted. China has been offering or promising them stuff, but I don't think anything much has come from China, which is noteworthy. China also, I don't think, wants to push the envelope too hard on India in Bangladesh, at least not right now. So the situation...
On cotton, I believe they've been importing cotton from Brazil.
Can you imagine the cost of that import?
Exactly.
I mean, We have shut all our land ports and seaports as far as Bangladesh is concerned. So they can't even land it in Bombay and then take it by land route to Dhaka or wherever they want to take it. So that's an absurdity. So Brazil will, of course, sell their cotton to them, but at what cost? Is that a sustainable cost where your profit margin per shirt is 1 taka or 2 taka? You want to play with that kind of a margin? And lastly, look, India had a lot of undisclosed informal economic activity with Bangladesh. Whether it is cheap shoes which were going in from here, whether it was Hawaii chappals, whether it was matchboxes, whatever, you name it. A lot of stuff was going out from here, and maybe they were below the radar. Nobody was recording them, and no record exists of it. But there was a lot of trade happening. And that sustained the Bangladeshi economy. In this kind of a situation, for India to be seen as openly endorsing an election that is tainted even before the first vote has been cast, would be morally wrong, ethically wrong, and politically incorrect, because elections come, elections go. 10 years from today, we don't know what will happen, but history will record this, that India endorsed an illicit, quote-unquote, election in Bangladesh, which it could have avoided doing, even if it can't stop it from happening. And we know, but the only solace, you said that there will be a pushback. Yes, I believe that there will be a pushback, no matter what we see in Pakistan. There is a huge constituency which refuses to accept, despite the threats which they face, that everything is gone and we might as well concede. Don't forget, in Egypt, Barack Obama, who organized the Arab Spring, in the Lotus Revolution in Egypt, saw the downfall of Hosni Mubarak because the Americans had got bored of him. As nothing else, not that he was not serving the American purpose, but they just got bored with him, and they wanted a new face. And Barack Obama's strategists and Hillary Clinton was there at that time, and they came out with this brilliant proposal: we should install the Muslim Brotherhood into power. And once the Muslim Brotherhood is in power in Cairo, from Cairo to Addis Ababa and beyond, everything will be good, and the problems of the Middle East will be solved, and we can sit back and enjoy. It didn't happen that way. Muslim Brotherhood, of course, they engineered the election. The American embassy in Cairo did what the US embassy in Dhaka is doing now. They engineered the Muslim Brotherhood victory. Muslim Brotherhood had a precedent. And finally, what happened? One fine day, every Egyptian, to the last man, woman, child, in the middle of the night, they rose in protest. They marched to the presidential palace. They torched it and they dragged him down, and he survived. He survived that uprising simply because somebody in the security took care to put him in jail, in the nearest jail where they couldn't reach. So, it is now back to the system they were accustomed to. So we must not lose hope. We must not lose faith in the people of Bangladesh. But we must, under no circumstances, at least as a citizen of India, and I speak as a citizen of India, I would not want my country to endorse an election. We may have to do business with the devil if the devil comes to power, but that does not mean we have to endorse the process through which the devil has come to power. Thank you.
Maybe the devil has already come to power. But you know something, we have all been focusing on what happened around 24. But I remember very clearly, and the first time my eyebrows went up was sometime in 2019, 2020, when the first kind of sanctions started being imposed in the United States on Bangladeshi officials. That is when my radars started going, completely haywire. What the hell are the Americans trying to do? And then we saw the Muslim Brotherhood guys, along with the Jamaat representatives in Washington, lobbying very hard. And we had some Americans come over in India to lobby for the Jamaat and the Muslim Brotherhood line, towing that line in India. And this is at least 2 years before the 2024 events. So quite clearly, the Americans were preparing for what was happening. And all these, there's very ugly fellow American guy,
I know, a difficult name.
whatever that guy's name is, who's constantly, behaving as though this was some really nice and spontaneous thing. But quite clearly, something was underfoot for a couple of years. And I think at least on one thing, Yunus is truthful, that this was meticulously planned. So at least on that, he's correct. But let me not take any more time. Let me throw this open to the floor. Please identify yourself. Please keep your questions short. I think we've had very good comments from the three panelists. But please tell me who you want to ask the question to. I'll take 4 or 5 questions in one go. We have about 10 or 15 minutes. So please go ahead.
I'm Group Captain Srinivasan. My question is to Mrs. Sikri. Thank you very much for very comprehensively covering whatever you've been observing. My point is that we gave refuge to Sheikh Hasina when she fled from Bangladesh. That is the right thing to do under the circumstances. But we know she is going to be a hot potato if she continues to stay within the country. And we'll have no say with the future relations with the interim government or whoever is forming that. So why didn't we send her off to some European country like Norway, Sweden or something, so that the heat is off India? So today, if we take up anything with the Yunus government, first thing they're going to say is, you send us Hasina back. We have toppled her. She's not good for us. You send her back. So why are we keeping her still? What are we gaining out of it?
Who else? I'll just take 4 or 5 questions. Oh, God. Oh, damn. Too many questions. Please. Can we at least see your face?
Sir, sorry.
Okay, fine.
My name is Amit.
I'm kind of suspicious these days of people in masks. So,
My name is Amit, and I have one question, like the way what happened the last year revolution, the uprising, and then the students, they were not happy with the results, the quota reforms, and then they all came into power. Can it be a possibility that Indian government is right now just playing wait and watch? They want the election to happen. I'm not saying they're endorsing it, but they want it to happen. They want the results to go to BNP. They want people to feel angry. They want to have one more round of killing and then bring Sheikh Hasina back in Bangladesh. Can that be a possibility?
I think there were some ladies who... please, go ahead.
Alo from Pondicherry. My question, if it could be just said in as clear terms as possible, what is America's...
Whom are you asking the question?
The ambassador, actually all specialists can, including you. What is America's endgame in Bangladesh?
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, okay.
Sir, my question is that can India really afford to just wait and watch on the face of like China's rising action, building a Air Force base near Chicken's Neck and the border being porous? Can we expect the JEM terrorists to like infiltrate that border and cause some trouble to India? Can India really afford to just wait and watch the election? And what course of action can India take to like address this situation somehow? To like not cause immediate security risk.
Okay. Who else? Okay, let me just finish this and then I'll come on this side. Yeah, go ahead. I'll come.
Hello, I wanted to ask the question for the longest time.
Who is
So
this?
my name is Shomik Chakraborty.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So my question is to the author. So I wanted to ask that I really like the title of your book. It's called Inshallah Bangladesh. So in the name of Allah. So I basically find like reverences from the historic March 1971 speech of Sheikh Mujib, wherein, he ends the speech with an emphasis on the word inshallah. And, in this recent movie, that was created in collaboration with India and Bangladesh, the Making of a Nation, Sheikh Mujib, there also, that clip is there. So I wanted to ask the author about the thought behind the title and whether that was kind of considered and, basically the thought behind the title.
Okay, I'll take these 5 questions to the thing. You want to start with Inshallah Bangladesh, which I think is not your contribution, it is his contribution.
Actually, it's a simple. I'm not so intellectual. I didn't think of all of that. My ex-colleague and friend Iram Ibrahim is here. She gave me the title. I thought it's a cool name, Inshallah Bangladesh.
But it's
Interestingly,
it's there in the piece which
yes,
Shahidul.
no, it's when we got to speak to Sheikh Hasina over the phone, she asked us that why are we calling it Inshallah Bangladesh? Because so we said because Inshallah means God willing, Allah willing. So she said most people in Bangladesh don't read, so when they see the title of the book, they're going to think you're giving gali to Bangladesh by using Allah's name. So she was right, because once the book came out, the kind of hate comments we have been getting, and mostly Shahidul, he has had to fend off many of those. But actually, she's here, so it's Iram's idea to have the.
So blame it on her.
Blame it on Iram, yeah.
Right. Okay, fine. The other question, ma'am.
Your first question, Quayle, was about, as you say, sending off Sheikh Hasina. I'm afraid that's not how foreign policy operates. Your friends are your friends. If you had a very good friend whom you had given shelter to in your house, and somebody surrounds the house and tries to knock down the gate, what will you do? You'll offer up your friend as bait.
Not bait, ma'am. I'm just saying to keep the
No,
limelight off.
I'm sorry.
For the time
That's not India's credibility. No, I'm sorry. That's not how foreign policy operates. The Dalai Lama, Honorable Dalai Lama, His Holiness has been here for more than 5 decades. We know that. Many more than that, 6, 7. So, through thick and thin, a friend is a friend. And a friend in need of that person who is in disguise is a friend indeed. Let's not forget, there are some things beyond just foreign policy rhetoric. And there are some things beyond just, temporary so-called definition of things. So I think that...
If I might just add something to this.
Yeah.
One of the biggest problems, at least, and this is a personal thing I'm saying, I'm not attributing it to anybody. This is my personal grouse, because I've heard this from many people. One of the biggest grouses India's friends have against us is that we don't stick by our friends, that we dump them. And I think it's very good that we are backing, at least giving refuge. We're not backing her right now or any such thing, but at least giving refuge to our friends. And I think if you start dumping your friends today because it's not convenient, why would they be your friends anyways?
And do you think you'll get what you want if you dump Sheikh Hasina?
But
Never.
I think you're missing something over here, because after Sheikh Hasina's entire family was killed in a single night, she and her sister were the only survivors. And during the entire period, till she was able to get back.
81, yeah.
In 81?
Yeah, 81.
She was protected and kept in Delhi. So this is not the first time that we are standing by her. This is the second such occasion. And we also have other very contentious Bangladeshis living in India. We have Taslima Nasreen living here. So did we say that, okay, we don't want any hassles over here, Baba, just take her back? And this whole thing of we can send her back for some time and again get her back. The moment she sets foot over there, Yunus is going to personally ensure that she is executed, and unless he himself serves as the executioner.
to a third country, sir, not to Bangladesh.
No third country will have her.
In fact, I don't know whether you've seen, but her son, Sajid Joy, he's put out a WhatsApp where he's personally thanked Prime Minister Modi, not only for giving shelter to Sheikh Hasina, but for giving her complete protection. And he said there are 50 Islamic countries in the world. Not one of them have said, come and be with me. Not one. Nobody has raised their voice. all the ones who were pretending friendship, nobody has raised. But India is not like that. And secondly, we do have an extradition treaty with Bangladesh. That is very important. And we are following the procedures and the things. And this Bangladesh habit. We said the last December we asked for. They never said it was a one-line motobal is not an extradition request. I think it's only now, for 4 or 5 or 6 days ago, after the judgment, that maybe the authorized copy of the judgment may have come. But I think that's what is being done. But let's be very clear on that. The second question was on the elections. I think that I think India in these days has exercised a lot of strategic restraint in dealing with Bangladesh, and we have not gotten unnecessarily excited about many of the things, because in the long run, giving a knee-jerk quick reaction is not going to serve the purpose. Are serious. I'm not going to say anything what the government may decide, but I agree with what Kanchanji said, that we are not going to endorse these kind of, because we have spoken so strongly in favor of participatory elections. In fact, 3 days ago, when External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar spoke at the Hindustan Times Summit, he said that. He said the whole issue was about elections. And now you're talking about non-participatory elections. I think that should be brought out to the attention of the world, that this is happening. So I think that is a very, very important point about that.
And there was one question, ma'am, on, can we wait and watch?
No, not for the election.
Not for the election, but generally wait and watch on what some of the India's adversaries are doing in Bangladesh. Can we just wait and watch?
No, I think I've said already that India has been exercising strategic restraint, but I think that going back to a pre-1971 situation when 10 million people walked into India, if that is what the wait and watch is going to lead to, then it's very dangerous. And if you are going to accept something that was there pre-1971, then why did 1971 take place? And the other big question, again, I come back to the people of Bangladesh. How many of the people of Bangladesh still value 1971? I think a fair majority do. Much more than 50%. And I think whatever you may say about Jamaat-e-Islami and then trying to impose their will and then forcing themselves, on the people and in terms of popularity, but the values of what 1971 stood for, the way they got their independence, and for them to say that Pakistan will come back again and do the same things, I mean, if that's what the people of Bangladesh want, I'll be very, very surprised to see that they want that.
I'll take 3 or 4 more questions, so please.
For the US endgame.
He's been waiting for a very long. No, you keep sitting. You can just ask.
Ma'am.
Endgame part has not been answered.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll take that.
Very quickly, let's get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Nothing that America ever does beyond America has an end game to it. So it just either sticks around or it just unravels. We have seen it in country after country, whether it's Korea, whether it's Vietnam, whether it's in Indochina, whether it's in Pakistan, whether it's in Afghanistan, wherever. So it really doesn't make any sense to talk about end game for America. There is no end game.
It's the beginning of a new game.
Good evening, panel. Thank you for your views. So in terms of multilateral forums, engagement with Bangladesh, so 2 years back, there was a resolution passed, L54, in the Human Rights Council, just stating that a religious text has been burnt. A special session was called by Organization of Islamic Cooperation, headed by Pakistan in Geneva. So in terms of just burning a text was a minority right violation, why Human Rights Council or High Commissioner Volker Turk has not even called a special session in terms of minority rights violation in Bangladesh?
My question is addressed to Ambassador Bina ma'am and Kanchan Gupta sir. The book also talks about greater Bangladesh fantasy, in which Bangladeshi Islamists imagine cutting northeast from rest of India, and even they are further fantasizing to annex West Bengal, Assam, Odisha and Bihar into the so-called greater Bangladesh. So how should New Delhi respond to that?
Can you just sum up all the questions and take one minute each?
So I will just, because it's something which because of my job, I have been forced to look at it. It's frightfully boring. The whole thing about Yunus dreaming about Bangladesh becoming a greater Bangladesh, of which the 7 northeastern states will be a part, and then finally Calcutta will fall, so will Bhubaneswar, and so will Patna, and they will have a grand country of their own. Now, he actually believes it. He has even printed a book which he gives out to everybody, in the cover of which shows the 7 northeastern states of India as part of Bangladesh. Uh, this is not really his idea. This is an idea which goes back to the 1950s, 1960s. There was this guy called Maulana Bhashani. He was called Maulana Bhashani. He was called a Maulana, but he was actually a Kattar communist. And he was associated with the Communist Party of Bangladesh, such as it was. And he had this grand theory, which he borrowed from Hitler. He called it Lebensraum theory. And the explanation was that Bangladesh is a very population dense country. They don't have the land to accommodate all people over there. Therefore, they need additional living space. And that additional living space, they had the right to snatch away from India. Then 71 happened, things settled down, nobody talked about it anymore. But the Hizbut Tahrir, the NCP, which has spawned the NCP, they dream of reviving the Maulana Bhashani movement. And it charges Yunus because then he can sound as, he can beat his little drum and say that one day all this shall be mine. Lastly, you can't quite imagine India giving up its northeast or whatever. The Pakistanis went, as I said, the Pakistanis went and set up a training camp right next to the Chicken's Neck. Now, what we have done is we have moved heavy forces, and this is what has appeared in the media is only the tip of the icebergs. Maybe Sushant would know more. I wouldn't ask him to disclose over here. There is heavy security which has been stuffed over there between the Chicken's Neck and Bangladesh's border. And if push comes to shove, Bangladesh is going to literally lose its head. And instead of a greater Bangladesh, he will be left with a lesser Bangladesh, and India will have a greater northeast. Fatter chicken.
In elephant's neck.
It will have a fatter chicken's neck. So these ifs and buts of it are really not consequential. India is too smart than to be taken in by Yunus. I'm not talking about anybody else, but Yunus is quite dumb, if I may say so. If you hear him talk, he's so simplistic. He doesn't even understand the ABCD of governance, policy, how things work. So let's not worry about that. Thank you.
Deep, anything in the end? You have take a minute.
No, I think there's one interesting point. I think where there's a slight disagreement with Veena ma'am. I agree that 1971 is very crucial to the survival of Bangladesh, the idea of Bangladesh, and also to India. But I think, if you were in your early 20s or 30s in 1971, you'd be quite old, quite senior by now, right? So there's a whole generation that grew up in Bangladesh who are young now, and for whom 1971 is ancient history. And there's the last film directed by Shyam Benegal, Mujib: The Making of a Nation, which Kanchan sir and I got to see, and I had a dissenting note saying it erred on historical facts, among other things. That film was shown. It was kind of election. It was part of her election machinery to show that film to the youngsters of Bangladesh. That film nobody saw in Bangladesh. Very few people. Only her people went and saw that film. Shahidul is smiling. But so for this young crowd, all they have seen for last 15 odd years is Hasina. So all the anti-incumbency is against her. So if we keep harping on 1971, which I think we should, of course, but just to look at Bangladesh as through the prism of 1971, I think is wrong. I think I fear things will go worse from here on till things get better and people in Bangladesh start to believe, it's civil society, that Hasina was better than what came after her. I think that's still some time off. And one minute, if I can have, I think I get to speak to the senior leadership of Army League. I think since the time Sheikh Hasina has been here till now, I can't speak for her, but at least very senior ministers in her cabinet told me time and again that they expect India to do something. Whereas I think the sense in India was that if Army League is so powerful still, if there's so much vote that they have, Army League their people on the ground should do something, and then maybe, something can happen. And I think we waited too long. And now the elections have been announced. So we can say it's not free, neither free nor fair. But February 12 elections, unless something happens, looks like an inevitability. So I think the Army League, yesterday only I got to talk to somebody very senior from Army League who's still inside Dhaka, who said, when will India do something? So we can keep talking, but I think things are moving in a certain direction. So till things get far worse than what they are now, we have to wait and watch.
Well, thank you. Just one point on the 1971 issue. Our own independence in 1947 was much earlier, and many generations have come since then. But none of them have ever forgotten 1947. I think I don't think you can say that for today's younger generation, independence of India means nothing. It is a defining moment in the history of a nation.
But today's younger generation also takes it for granted.
No, yes, you can take it for granted. That is the point.
You should never take independence for granted.
I agree that the tendency to take it for granted, but doesn't still mean you don't value it. It can never mean that. You can take it for granted. You think it'll never change. That is something that can happen. But I think that that is the situation in Bangladesh. And secondly, I think again and again I come back to the saying that it is the people of Bangladesh who have to express. And I think the situation is moving in that direction. That more and more people, as I say, already many people who come from there will say it quite directly. The Bangladeshi diaspora, if you talk to them, I'm not talking about the people, the Awami Leaguers who are in India, but there's a diaspora, all over the world, which is as united and as active as many parts of the Indian diaspora. And contacts all show that, that the feeling within Bangladesh is growing more and more in that direction. So I think we cannot comment on what's going to happen, but let us see. And I still don't think it means we should just accept what's happening. You still have to comment and talk about it. I think this view of Grameen Bank and Mohammad Yunus, I think that's a very important point here. Because when Sheikh Hasina filed the cases against Mohammad Yunus, and 200 Nobel laureates all over the world wrote to her and said, why are you doing this, and so on and so forth. And her answer was, here are all the documents on which the cases have been filed. I ask anybody to come to Bangladesh and look at them, and then comment on them and say if this is right or wrong. Nobody came. And Mohammad Yunus's first action was to get himself exonerated. So not only he has got himself exonerated of all the blame, and he wants to become president because that will mean he'll get immunity, so nobody can ever file a case again. But even the people in the so-called regime, so-called what you are defining as revolution, what I define as regime change, even those people have had themselves indemnified. I've never seen a country, it's only in Bangladesh, that when Sheikh Mujib was killed in 1975 and Ziaur Rahman came to power, the first thing was to indemnify. That all those who have done, they have to be indemnified. They have to be given complete freedom. So now again in Bangladesh, that means they were guilty as hell and then they've been indemnified. So now again, these very same people in Bangladesh have had themselves indemnified. We can never be charged for what we did. So that is, I think, a very good indication of who's guilty of what. And finally, on the NSS, I think it's an important document, no doubt, but it's new. And it does go against the grain of what the Trump administration has been doing for the last, or rather, what they've been condoning that was happening before in Bangladesh is a very big case in point. So I think the Trump administration has to prove that they mean and they support what they have written in the NSS. And it's very strange that in Bangladesh, for example, the new American ambassador has been cleared by Congress, but he's not going there. He's sitting in, I don't know where, in America or somewhere else. And the ex-Bangladesh ambassador, Peter Haas, he's there as an employee of a private sector company. And he's in and out of Bangladesh all the time. So I really don't know whether the Trump administration is following or letting the whatever the Biden deep state did continue, or whether based on the new NSS he will go somewhere. But certainly as far as investment is concerned, Bangladesh is not a friendly investment destination at all. In fact, they say that one of the biggest complaints and the downfall of the economy, forget foreign investment, even private domestic investment has gone down to zero. And banks are in a very difficult and precarious position. So I think the investability in Bangladesh it may perhaps be their undoing, because nobody is going to go there with their money. And what is going to happen if you don't? The economy will just, you'll have more and more poor people. And that itself is a cause of worry to India, because that leads to instability. And again, once the instability rises and poverty rises, you do have a great pressure. Yeah, exactly. But they only have their jihadi outlook, and they're trying to export that to Bangladesh, and then Bangladesh wants to export it maybe to India. So I think these are the questions of worry for India.
Just half a minute, very quick 3 points. One, Ambassador mentioned the diaspora, and Bangladesh has one of the largest diaspora in the world. I mean, they are spread across possibly every country, including Arctic. I mean, if you go up there, you will find Bangladesh is running a Bangladeshi restaurant. So they may not have been Awami League supporters, though I have met quite a few of them in Germany. All of them are Awami League supporters over there. But the choice was either Awami League or BNP. They don't have Jamaati supporters among the diaspora. Now, the diaspora routinely used to send back home a huge sum of money. That has stopped now. And one of the reasons why the economy is in free fall, because the banks, and as you know, in Bangladesh, every street has a bank by a different name. So that money has stopped coming in, and it's a huge blow to Bangladesh. Two, I can't quite imagine the educated Bengali of Bangladesh, whether he is left, right, center, whatever it is, to go back to pre-1971. When I think when Ambassador talks about the 71 spirit, it is not about who fought what and who won, who lost, or that India did this, India didn't do that. It's the spirit of liberation, of being an autonomous country, of being a country which decides for its own. To become a stooge of Pakistan, how much of that will work? I mean, the jury is still out. And lastly, Deep, you should use all your influence and shut down the fish shops of CR Park. The moment you do that, the elite of Bangladesh will go back to Dhaka and they will lead the counter-revolution.
Thanks a lot to all the three panelists, Ambassador Sikri, Deep Halder, and of course Kanjanda. Thank you everybody for coming out here. One last point I'll make. Seeking indemnity is such a Pakistan thing to do. Every Pakistani dictator, every Pakistani military guy, and including the current so-called elected president, Mr. 10%, they all seek indemnity and complete immunity for life. So if Yunus is doing it, why not? Why? So I suppose on that,
Pakistan is not the gold standard.
maybe for some people in Bangladesh it is. But on that unhappy note, I think we can call this a day. And thank you everybody for coming out here until the next Neighbourhood Scope. Thanks a lot.